Hi, I'm Wild Bill, and I'm not a martial artist, and neither are you. So let me talk about that for a while and put up with me long enough till you realize how mad you should be at me for being such a jerk. Or how you might want to scratch your chin and think, damn, does he have a point to make? Holy mackerel, how did I miss that? So here we go. Today I'm going to start talking about something that would be called Drunken Fist. I'm going to have to give you a preamble first because I'm going to say some things you're not going to be familiar with, and hopefully you will totally disagree with me and then prove me wrong by philosophy. So here we go. What is a martial art? Well, it's what a general does. That's right. What does martial mean? Military. So is a karateka a military person? No. Is he an artist? No. Is he being taught a fighting art? No. Then what the hell's going on here, Wild Bill, English teacher's son, that understands the language perhaps better than all the martial arts masters of all time and space? Conceited a little bit? No, I'm conceited a lot, and I have good reason for it. In this particular case, I've got something to skunk all the martial arts masters in all of history because they don't know what they're talking about when they call what they do a martial art. So, the martial, it comes from Mars, which is the Latin word for the god of war, and it pertains specifically to military matters. So, is a karateka a military person? No. Judoka? No. Kung Fu master? No. So they aren't martial at all. Who is martial? The general is martial. The general has to do things to keep his troops in reasonably good shape and high morale so they will be most effective when they meet the enemy. And they will be most highly motivated to continue to struggle as long as possible. That's what a general does. And a general is a martial artist. His job is to make sure that there's water in range of the camp. His job is to make sure that there won't be latrines that could contaminate that water, but that there are latrines that can relieve the men. His job is to make sure that there are some roads left open for medical casualties to be rotated back to the aid stations. His job is to make sure that there is enough road space for all the ammunition and men and material going forward and all the stuff coming back. His job is to make sure that his unit is guarded on its flanks and its perimeter, that it knows where its closest allies are so that there are no friendly fire incidents. His job is so big that it is the queen of the battle. So that's what a martial artist is, a general, a person who specifically attends to the art of war, as written by and indented by the students of Sun Tzu. That's right. Sun Tzu's art of war is the general's art, the prince's art, the ruler's art, the martial art. Because that situation changes all the time, and you must use dozens of different things, dozens of different ideas, dozens of different schema. You must put them together in unusual and new and novel ways in order to have an impact that leaves you as a nation, as a force, as a people intact. That's the martial art. So that's not what a karateka does. That's not what a judoka does. That's not what a boxer does or a wrestler does. That's not what Annie Oakley did. But all these people are people that we might have considered to be, quote, martial artists, unquote, in our untutored past. However, I have just shown that what a karateka does is not martial. Now I'm going to explain why it's not an art. What is art? Art is creativity, applied creativity. What is a skill set? Well, it is the basis from which an artist can better apply creativity. It is not the art itself. What is a skill set? Well, it is a series of muscle memory builders based on tradition. People who have gone before, people who have done it before, people who have presented you with these things to learn so that you can be better at whatever it is you do, be it electrician or shoemaker or president or Wild Bill. Good luck with that. So, when a karateka performs, he is performing a tactical fighting systems skill set. And he is performing memes and mnemonic devices to help him remember that and build muscle memory so that he will be able to perfect that skill set. A person who is concerned with a skill set and the perfection of that skill set is called a craftsman. And you can perfect a skill. But you can't perfect an art, because art is open-ended and infinite, and skills are close-ended and finite. You can become the best shoemaker in the world. Anyone can become the best shoemaker in the world. That's what a craft is, something that anyone can learn and perfect themselves within. What is an art? Art is something that is given to certain individuals the ability to apply their creativity through a medium to create a new or novel combination of existing factors. That's why AI can never be artists. You don't understand yet, but you will someday. AI have no trauma to drive them. They have no reason to be creative except programming. There's no reason for what they do. What AI does is kaleidoscopy. Has nothing to do with creativity or intellect. So anyway, your karateka is not pursuing an art. He is pursuing a craft. And a craft can be perfected because it's based on tradition, and everyone can learn all the rules of that craft and perfect it, at least each to his own ability. Whereas in art, you have to be gifted with a creative impetus in the first place, and you need to be traumatized so that your social skill set is not strong enough to interface with your social existence well enough to keep you in the mainstream. So you find an ancillary way of expressing yourself, expressing your social tensions, working out your aggression, your unhappiness, so that you can be more social, better social when you are among people. And that's art. Karate is not that. Even the general's art only vaguely involves that. That's why I can only call it an art in the best versions. But a karateka is not looking to create or improvise. A karateka is looking to adhere himself to a tradition so that he can perfect the skill set it teaches. Yes or no? So when the instructor calls karate a martial art, he either doesn't know what he's talking about, or he accepted something blindly without ever considering what those words meant in English, or is an ignorant fool, and you are following an ignorant fool. Which would you like it to be? Oh, or Wild Bill is wrong, and I'm going to prove it to him by philosophical means, employing language. Go right ahead. I'm willing to be enlightened. But you can't beat sense into a human being. You can only beat fear into them. And if that's all you've got, then you're no artist. So, let's talk about what karate and what kung fu, so to speak, as a blanket term that covers fighting skill sets rather than cooking and painting, which kung fu also really engages. It just means your skill set. But let's talk about how karate is a skill set. You have a master who had a master who had a master who had a master. And they taught according to a syllabus. This is Taekwondo. This has been taught by this master to this master to this master to this master. And none of them got to be the next master by doing anything different or against the old master's wishes or instruction. Nobody could be an improviser. Nobody could be an artist, because that's what artists do. They improvise. That's what art is. It is improvisation. It is taking existing elements and rearranging them or infusing them with a different energy to make them novel, new, unusual, exciting, entertaining. Whereas karate or boxing or wrestling is all about teaching a person to do things exactly like everyone has done them before, exactly like all the rules that are known very well, because there are lots of rules, and exactly so that the trainer feels that he has taught that boxer or that wrestler or whatever exactly what he was taught by his trainer, by his trainer, by his trainer. Now, in boxing, you have many schools of boxing instruction, and in karate, you have many schools of karate instruction. In jiu-jitsu, look at Brazilian jiu-jitsu versus Japanese jiu-jitsu versus American jiu-jitsu. These are all very different in some ways, but all of them claim to be following a master who followed the correct tradition, who is teaching you the right thing, how it was taught, how it has come down from the ancient ages to today, or how it has been changed by masters who have decided, this is what you do instead. I've incorporated 4 styles of leopard strike into my tiger style. That stuff. Well, very big deal. But in truth, what I learned in Shorin-ryu from Dan Kestner, who learned in Shorin-ryu from Masuyama, who learned in Shorin-ryu from Funakoshi, who learned in Shorin-ryu from, I forget what the name of the Sun Source guys was from Okinawa, but he was quite the man. But what I learned was pretty much exactly what they had taught year after year after year after year after year. If I had done anything, if I said, you know what, these guys are waiting for a foot sweep, bang, and knocked a guy over in class as a green belt, I would have been kicked out of the dojo. If I had said, you know what, I could just pull my sword and poke this guy, I would have been taken away by the police. If I had done anything unlike the tradition of Shorin-ryu karate, I would have been a pariah and forced out of the system. Because it's a tradition. It is a fighting system requiring a skill set which is based in tradition. There is no, I've just decided to do this. There is, I'm doing what my teacher did, who did what his teacher did, tradition. Tradition, however, is the enemy of art, because tradition holds you to a framework, and art is the enemy of frameworks. Art says, no, not that. You can't force me to do that again. I'm doing it some other way now, just to get out from under your shadow. And thus all the movements in art, Dadaism, Pointillism, this is all reasons these were artists rejecting tradition and creating the novelty that led us into the modern age and our modern views on art. However, that's art, that's creativity, that is got no roof, it has no top. You can keep going in it because you can't perfect it. Whereas karate, whereas boxing, wrestling can be perfected. And they rigidize you into a system of tradition, which is the enemy of art. So, karate is not an art, and karate is not martial. So I would like one of you to tell me why you call karate a martial art. I think it's because somebody told you to, and that person didn't know what he was talking about. What I just did is not sophistry. I did not make stuff up. I did not try to sneak you away from the truth. I'm literally telling you what my insight in this matter is, and I'm sorry to say it, as an artist, I'm pretty darn insightful. So, I'm going to show you something that shows you, I'm going to illustrate something about a fighting system, because I believe that karate and judo, any budo, any kung fu that's fighting oriented, is a tactical fighting system that requires a specific skill set that you have to adhere to a tradition in order to learn, in order to be considered an expert in. And so what you call your master, your martial arts master, is legitimately an instructor of a tactical fighting system, not a martial artist. He is neither martial nor artist, but he is a trainer and instructor of a tactical fighting system. Now, you could write a note here and say, okay, I'm going to tell Bill he's wrong because, and I'll start laughing because there is no way to out-logic me. I just gave you truth, not trickery. Anything else is incomplete understanding of what those words mean. So let's move on from that and say something else that's a total misunderstood thing in the fighting systems, right? Is this idea of the drunken art. Some people say from a movie that drunken art is about this guy that was so good that he could get drunk and just be a better fighting artist than anyone else, a better fighter than anyone else. All right. And there could be a grain of truth to that because Wang Fei Hung was an opium addict. And I have a pretty good idea of why. Wang Fei Hung was an opium addict because you know that opium kills pain, dulls pain, and he was a fighter. Think about it. So could you be a better fighter if you were immune to pain? In the short term? I think so. If you got too high, would you be a better fighter? No, there's a balance, right? That's what speedballing is about. Because if you get too high, you can't function. So you got to have something to keep you up. Oh, yeah. Or you got to be one hell of a man to like stay awake while you're like, half asleep. So here's your idea of your drunken style fighting arts master, fighting system master. He is a person who is literally drunk or high and so feels less pain. And is going to be sloppy because of it. You can't be precise when you're either drunk or mojo. So you're going to be like, whoa, a little bit, and you're going to miss some stuff, and you're going to crack your knees and stuff, and you just ignore it because of the pain killing remedy that you're doing. And this can lead to a myth that you're a better fighter than you really are. Because you took damage, the other person thought he was going to kill you, and he's now worried about it. Am I going to kill this guy? And that, he who hesitates is lost. So this is one way that we can be taught something as part of a tradition. It turns out that the tradition taught a lie. It doesn't take long before a man like that is on the ground dead, because he'll go home and he'll get high again to cover the pain up, and he'll stay high, and then that leads to you being all blocked up in your belly, and you don't want to exercise, and pretty soon you're not going to be the great fighting arts specialist master that you are. You're going to be another opium addict. You're going to be another alcoholic. All right, this is a way to look at it, and I'm waiting for you guys to say, point number 2, Bill is wrong because I'm going to use my philosophy and my words and show him that he's not the only one that can do that. Give you a minute to write your note down. Bill was wrong because. Okay, now I'm going to go to another way of viewing drunken style. Here is the idea that the artist himself, or that the fighter himself, is not a drinker, but that he imitates being drunk so that his enemy is disoriented and unsure of himself. Well, this is another piece of truth buried in a bunch of myths, because every fighting style does that, doesn't it? Has feints, has ways to draw the opponent in so the opponent thinks, oh, I got this, and moves and does something intemperate, and that allows the fighter to take advantage of it and perhaps win. Every fighting system has that. So yeah, that could be. A guy sometimes weaves and bobs and weaves. Hey, doesn't that sound like something you know, bobbing and weaving? Yeah. In China, they thought the guy was drunk. So it wasn't the fighter that made that name up. The fighter didn't make up the name of the shadowless kick. It was the newspaper man that made up that name. The fighter didn't make up, these names, drunken style. It's the news people and the people telling the stories, that, the novel writers that made up these ideas, that made up these stories to try to tell you things because they heard a word and they thought, oh, that's so cool, that evokes this idea in me, so I'll just write about a guy that got so drunk that nobody could beat him. As if. The closest to that I can think of is Winston Churchill, and he had a lot of help. So it isn't a drunkard fighting. Though a drunkard fighting is understandable because you can get into a fight at a bar, and if you're an expert, even after you've lost a lot of it, you're still pretty dangerous. And if you're now drunk and you don't feel the pain, ooh, it might be a whole nother level. So those ideas are pertinent, but they aren't describing what drunken style is, what drunken fist tactical combat is about or like. And I am no expert. I hold no black belt. I hold no expertise or credential in any kind of fighting system. Why believe me? Well, I've already shown that your masters lied to you. Did you not remember that? Point one. Your masters, all of them, didn't know what they were talking about because they call karate a martial art. It's neither martial nor an art. Did you not hear me? Okay. So, yeah. So, I'm an artist. That gives me insight that non artists don't get. They get things I don't get. Believe me, it's a balance. I would almost rather be a more traditional person because I would be so much more effective in the world. But as a more traditional person, I would not be nearly as fine as I am as an artist. So I'm going with what works for me. I'm going with my strengths. I'd like to go with my weaknesses, but they're pretty bad. So I'm going to stay with my strengths. And one of my strengths is this insight I have into other people's fighting styles. Because I got beat up a lot when I was young. And then when I finally didn't get beat up, I started thinking, no, how do you do that as a system? And that came to this idea. So I'm going to show you the third way to look at the drunken art, or in my case, call it the drunken fist tactical fighting system. I'm going to show you first where that comes from, because even though I explain it with the Shuto, I'm going to demonstrate it how I learned it with the Jian. The Jian is the Chinese longsword. I have a very shortened version of it. I have weak hands, so my one-handed Jian is quite enough for me. And it has a bad hilt. Somebody put a terrible hilt on it. But it is a lovely blade, and it will illustrate what I mean by drunken sword. So watch this. I'm going to go demonstrate, and I'm going to come back to talk about it. So what I just did there was I did a swipe and a chop and I did a lunge. Well, not a lunge, but a stab. And then I showed you a little bit of drunken sword. I am neither a master of drunken sword, nor am I the inventor. I am merely Wild Bill, and I'm showing you what I have learned through my strange road. So, what I tried to illustrate there is that the body has a natural spring and release mechanism. Did you see it in there? I waved the sword away, and then it snapped itself back. I almost didn't have to add energy to it. The body of the sword isn't carrying a whole lot of force, but the blade of the sword merely needs to reach its target and give it about 1.25 inches. So that is a potential method of using a sword that is not the traditional one. I showed you the traditional ones first. I showed you cut and, sweep and lunge. And those are traditional ways of using a sword. And I'm going to use words now. I hate it when people say things that sound flowery, philosophical, and do not communicate or teach. So I apologize for this in advance. And I also apologize to Vince Beatty, who is a legitimate sword master, for what I'm about to say. The sword, and much of karate, is all about keeping the center line for yourself and denying it your enemy. Yeah, I know. See what I mean? Sounds like I'm talking mystical nonsense, and I'm complaining about other people doing that. But the center is the center line between your heart and the enemy's heart. And you drop your center, you drop your center of gravity, that's a different center. But you then use the center line to stab your opponent through the heart, right? Your sword right through his heart, that's the center. He tries to stop you from doing that. He's trying to deny you the center. And a lot of expert sword play, the only stuff that I've seen, is two experts each trying to capture the center while denying their opponent the center. In other words, the center line thrust that either pinks him in the arm or it stabs him through the throat or stabs him through his xiphoid process and hopefully kills him instantly, because then you won't get a hurt in return. So anyway, that's what that's about. Now, when you saw the spring that I did, the lean down and the snap back, that could be used to either cut or thrust or chop. And it's all one motion. And that's not the only one. I'm just showing you the one that taught me something. Now I'm going to go back and show you why I realized it was a system of springs and catches and why it came to me at all. Because I'd studied Shorin-ryu karate. And Shorin-ryu karate and Isshin-ryu and several other styles teach something called the shuto, right? Literally hand sword. Literally, it is the hand held rigid, and then you strike with the palm heel. It looks like you're hitting with the edge of the hand, but you're really striking with the palm heel. But it is the way that you see people breaking boards in the demonstrations. That's a shuto, unless they use a punch. I'm going to show you how the shuto works. I'm going to very much act it. So don't expect a fighting specialist to throw a shuto like I do in combat, because he'll be doing it in a much abbreviated and much more efficient way. I'm going to exaggerate the motions in the hopes of conveying what's going on to you better. Please accept my apology in advance. And for you guys that really know what a shuto is, you'll get it. Here goes. So what I'm doing is I'm cocking the body from the waist, and I'm delivering that energy from the waist, using my hips to deliver that energy. What you see is you see the shuto, the knife-edged hand slashing toward its target. But what you might fail to see in other cases is the flow of energy, literally, where the fighter is taking his muscle power from and how he is delivering it through his body to hit the opponent with the maximum amount of it while damaging himself the least. All right, so I was taught in karate something elementary, that you follow through. The shuto's follow through, of course, is the amount of force that you are delivering is going to move the opponent aside if you do it well. This is not how a master delivers a shuto. I will show you that in a sec. Because I'm not a master, I will only give you an idea of it. But I know a master. I've watched him deliver one, and I realized what I was doing that was at variance with what he's doing. We are still doing the same thing, but he has far more power, far more authority, and the ability to use less of his more massive body to do more work because of his expertise. He wins, I lose. But I think I'm able to teach it in a way he couldn't, because you'd look at him and think, oh, that's easy, and you'd be so wrong. So you can look at me and think like, whoa, he's going to wind up like a pitcher to deliver that. And that's because most of us aren't as good as my buddy is. So I'm going to go show you how he would deliver a shuto. And watch me again how I would deliver a shuto. You notice that his hand snaps back. It's ready again. He has delivered enough force to floor his man without a follow-through. And I was taught in Shorin-ryu to always follow through. You have to drive your blow through your man to knock him down. This is what I was taught. I was taught more elementary technique than my buddy. But you can see that I understood what was going on there. He would be so much better at it than I. He would not have to exaggerate the motion as much. He would not have to collect as much of his internal energy and spring and release as I would. He could do a lot more damage with a lot less effort comparatively. But I was doing the right thing to deliver energy from that shuto, cock and release, cock and release. You notice I left my arm extended because I'm expecting to follow through. For him, he would never do that because he'd expect the enemy then to grab his arm and to command the center that way. And I'm not even thinking that far ahead. I'm thinking, deliver the shuto, one strike fighting, we're done now. So I'm a little bit of an idiot. My advantage lies in that I can see both idiocy in myself and also in some other people that should not have it. So, again, your shuto uses a natural cock and release mechanism that your body is well adapted for. You saw how easy it was for me once I remembered what I was doing. The same thing with my buddy. He has trained his skill set so heavily that now he can deliver a superior amount of force with less contact, less follow through than all my energy, all my follow through. So that's pretty admirable. But by the same token, he would call what he does a martial art, and I would call what he does a tactical fighting system. There's no martial in it, there's no art in it, but there's tremendous skill and tremendous adherence to tradition, and that is a craft. So he is a person who has come close to mastering his craft. You can perfect a craft. How admirable. So is my friend the swordmaster. He is like that too with the sword, and he has karate skills too. Two guys that understand. They understand the skill set, they understand the fighting system far better than I do from a practical point of view. So I don't have anything to say when it comes to who would win in a fight. I'd be smashed. Either one of those men would easily dominate me, in spite of the fact that I know what they'll be doing and I know why, because I'm Wild Bill. But that doesn't mean I can counter masters of their craft. I mean, I'm good, but geez, you know what I mean? Am I going to play Punch-Out with Mike Tyson? No, I don't think so. So anyway, what happens is that you use your body's natural set of tension and relax, tension and release, spring cocked and fired. Use that to deliver this extra energy. I use it to deliver energy from my hips, using my whole body. My friends use it to deliver only the exact amount of energy to perform the function that they desire. They are experts. I think I could say that my swordmaster friend is a legitimate fighting system master. And that's the highest praise I can give. My other friend is as close to an artist as a fighting system student can be, because he does understand that you can modify a system and include other elements of other systems in it and create a subset system which no longer relies on tradition, but it relies on utility based on the fighter's needs. That is coming a lot closer to being an art. And all the traditional schools would hold up their fingers as crosses and say, "Get away, demon," right? Right? Yeah. Because the good schools teach the traditional art, and the bad schools teach I don't know what the hell that is, the Dillman schools. You know what I mean? Cheap power, knock you dead. Well, that guy didn't get knocked dead because he was holding his tongue in the wrong place in his mouth. Well, that means your system doesn't work. Well, yes, basically. So, anyway, I wanted to get through that. I showed you what drunken art is, what drunken sword is. I showed you what the shuto is, the basis of that cock and release, and that's where I got it from. As I did it with the sword one day, I went like, whoa, that's like the shuto. So I'll do that again as a demonstration one final time, in case I've got something here that I can communicate to you. If not, I'm just some chattering old man. So I urge you all to not believe a word of what I've said, to study it yourself, to read the sources yourself, and to consider if what I have said might be true, that karate is neither an art nor martial, that judo is neither an art nor martial, that anyone that calls fighting systems martial arts is a person that obviously does not understand what they're talking about. That's scary. And you should be mad at me for saying that. But you should be so mad that you crack a book and talk to experts and look at the language and see how tradition has modified truth over the years rather than perfected skill sets. So I'm going to show you one last demonstration, and then we'll take it on home. I didn't do that very well, but you get some of the idea of it. And I'm also employing these tension and release, tension and release, tension and release, moving in and out, directing energy, avoiding energy. So this is my view of the Drunken style fighting system. This is why I think that the people that have talked about it are usually mistaken in how they view it. And that those that say that it's derived from traditional fighting systems are half right, because all systems are derived from other systems unless you lived in a vacuum or under a rock. However, the things they say about them, like that the drunken art is used simply as deception, is incorrect. The drunken art is the art of the drunkard, also incorrect. The drunken art is a series of springs, cock and release, tensions that you can use to help you deliver energy at a high rate in combat, and perhaps confuse your opponent who doesn't understand that balance, that's cocking and release. Absolutely. And that's the Wild Bill system. That's why I think I have something here. That's why I think I'm on to something here. So remember, look up martial, look up art, and then decide if karate is either martial or an art. Same thing with any fighting system. I'm not against fighting systems. As a matter of fact, I much prefer them to firearms, because a person with a firearm doesn't understand what that means until after he's killed somebody. Whereas a person with a fist understands what that means halfway through the fight. So he learns his wisdom quicker. Like, oh, I don't think I want to do this no more. A guy in a gun doesn't think that until it's his turn. So anyway, that's Wild Bill on why your fighting arts is wrong. Because they aren't arts. And your martial arts is wrong because they aren't either martial or art. They are fighting systems. And they are dominated by a skill set based on tradition. That is the opposite of art, which is always growing, always changing. If I haven't made everyone think, then I have not achieved my purpose yet. I'm hoping I made some of you people think like, whoa, is there a point in some of this? Because if I did, then I have set you free of some of the chains you couldn't see that were already on you. They're invisible chains on everybody, including me. And I'm one of the people that I hope can break some of those chains from you people that need it. This is Wild Bill, signing off.